Welcome to Big Blend Radio, where we celebrate variety and how it adds spice to quality of life. Welcome, everyone. You know, every second Wednesday, we do our authors show with Books Forward. They are awesome. Check them out at booksforward.com if you're an author. And today, we're very excited. We have Deb Miller joining us. She is the author of the new memoir called Forget the Fairy Tale and Find Your Happiness. Even the title's relatable, and her memoir is definitely relatable. And I think a lot of us have been in some of these circumstances, and some of us may be at the beginning of a circumstance, but listen, there ain't no glass slipper. Okay. I'm just going to say, cause those may break. And even think about why they said a glass slipper. I mean, they already were telling you in that little Cinderella fairy book that it wasn't going to work. So that's so rude of me, but everyone, the book comes out June 24th, 2025 through She Writes Press. We're doing this in the month of May because, you know, Mother's Day just happened, and we dedicate the entire month to mothers everywhere. And mothers can also be your best friend. It could be a mentor. It could be your grandmother. There's a mother figure in your life. So go to the website, forgetthefairytale.net, and pre-order the book because it comes out June 24th, but pre-orders are so awesome for authors, and we love to support authors. Deb is also on the show with her daughter, Hadley Edwards, and this is so cool. So welcome, Deb. How are you?
Hey, Lisa, I'm so happy to be here to connect with your listeners who are ready to be inspired and rewrite their happily ever afters and take charge of their happiness. So thank you for having both Hadley and I.
I love it.
Thank
Hadley,
you so
welcome.
much,
How are you? Hey, how are you doing?
Doing great. So proud of my mom and so excited to be here talking with you today too.
I love this. I know you've also got another daughter, Ellie, and it seems that the three of you are very career centric. You've traveled a lot. You are all living life 100%. And Hadley, you're a mom too. So so this is quite exciting, right? When you think about your lives, Hadley, I wanted to ask, reading your mom's memoir, and obviously you're in it and everyone's in it. Does it kind of give you a perspective of your life, especially now being a mom, and like, wow, all these things have happened, and maybe just even looked at the times that created resiliency?
Oh, sure. It's a really fascinating experience to read the book as someone who's in the book and to see, Deb's perspective as opposed to what I might have thought at the time or even with hindsight. But all the time as a mother now, I have not only a new appreciation for my mom or moms everywhere, but it does make you rethink a lot, and certainly your priorities shift when you, choose to become a mother. And some of the most special times that we have are now 3 generations. It's myself, my mom, and my kids. And I know that, for example, like on my birthday, it's not about me anymore, but I know how much my mom worked, not only on that day, but thereafter. I feel like there's so many words like, I got to give mom flowers today. Oh my gosh. You just have a new appreciation for the things large and small that your moms do, whether it's behind the scenes or maybe you see, but you don't have the full context for when you're growing up.
This is really fascinating. And I know Nancy right now is clapping her hands, and I know she's hearing this through the ethers as we record this. She would be on the show, but she's taking care of puppies and they yap. But she's being a mom right now, right? We call ourselves grandmothers of dogs as we travel. But it is interesting because we've had these conversations. Obviously, we travel together, we work in a business together, and, we're friends at the same times. We do have our definitely very, very good arguments. They're fantastic. We should film those for people because they're creative, they're good, but they don't last very long because you can't, we don't allow that to happen. And especially in, as professionals and all of that, there's just you can have your little spat and move on. And during those spats, you can go, oh, well, this and this when I was a kid, but I've also now getting older going, yeah, moms are allowed to have some time out. Like they need to have some fun, and you can't realize that every little thing is about you. Meantime, it is still in them to do every little thing, right, Deb? That moms do so much more than what we may realize, and there's sacrifices that are made that even the kids don't know. And it's even a balancing act of even letting them know. So that's going to be interesting writing the memoir. So now they all know those sacrifices, right? Because you don't want to give them a guilt trip either, you know?
I actually have 3 kids. You mentioned Allie, who's my other daughter, and I have a son in the middle, girl, boy, girl. But it was so interesting, their reactions when they found out I was writing a book. So Hadley is the oldest, the one on the podcast today, and she's also an English major. And so of course she was a great editor and, offered ideas and critique and so forth. And dutiful oldest daughter, reads the manuscript multiple times. My son, who's next in the lineup, he's a lawyer. So he said he's a patent litigator in Manhattan. And he said, I'll get it in writing. So typical lawyer kind of comment, right? So in other words, he wanted to wait to read it until it was in paperback form.
And he's also going to read it, the fine lines in between the lines, right?
Yes. I'm sure he'll have a lot of notes for me. He's been giving me a few by phone as he's working his way through the ARC, the advanced reader copy. And then my youngest is actually a Gen Z. The first 2 are millennials, and the youngest, Allie, is a Gen Z. And she said, well, I'll wait for the audio version,
Oh, wow.
So I thought that was fun. But she has read the pieces that affected her, and she's given her approval or some offered for some edits and so forth. So it's kind of fun to see the generational reactions and the birth order reactions.
And I'm sorry to your son because we were just so in motherland here that, we were on the female side. So I did not mean to leave him out. But, it is really interesting. I started the show talking about Cinderella and the glass slipper. What do you think about the glass slipper? Didn't that give us a clue right at the beginning that it's not going to work? That's going to break at some point?
Yes, absolutely. And I think that there's a nice tie to the glass ceiling also for women. I think, both needed to be broken because, frankly, we shouldn't be wearing a shoe that society sets one size fit all. That's not how, feet are or life is, right? And so I definitely, I've had so much fun with this Disney Princess framework. It was actually something I came across while I was working on my doctorate on the topic of corporate rebranding. And most of the research that I was looking at were on AT&T or GM or somewhat boring, situations about rebranding. And then I stumbled across, it actually wasn't a journal article, it was in the New York Times, an article by Peggy Orenstein, and it was Cinderella Ate My Daughter. And she was talking about how the Disney had rebranded the Disney Princess franchise from damsels in distress like Snow White, Cinderella, Sleeping Beauty, to as society was changing, they realized they needed to change. And so in the late 80s, early 90s, they finally caught up to the women's movement. And that's when they came out with Ariel and Belle and Jasmine. And so these were princesses that were much more adventurous, but they still needed a prince to kind of save the day in part of the picture. And then, of course, we all know later, 10 or so years later, we started getting Mulan, and then later Merida and Moana and all the other ones in between. And now you don't even see a prince in the picture, right? These girls are the heroine. They are the ones saving the day. And as I looked at that framework, when I started to write the memoir, I thought, that's what I was doing. I was going from kind of damsel in distress, following the fairy tale that was my mom's June Cleaver, kind of vacuum and pearls attitude. And I thought that was the life I was, going to have. And then I realized, no, I wasn't living that life. I was more like a Mulan. And so I thought that would be a fun universal framework to use. And so each chapter starts out with some cultural commentary about the Disney princesses and how they were transforming. And it was almost exactly in parallel. So was I.
That's interesting, looking at how Disney is transformed. I mean, you could go way back when, even like Minnie Mouse and all of that, how things have changed over time. Just even when we look at how different races have been treated at Disney, and going all the way up to now, how it's had to evolve because of
Yes.
pop culture does actually dictate that. If you even look at, the last Grammys, like Chapel Roan and how she was speaking, and it's like, okay, uh, when you watch those kinds of award shows and things, you start, artists tend to use their space when they can to be vocal about things. And pop culture does have a strong vote, I think, in a
Yes.
strong way of changing minds. But what led you to actually write the memoir? Because it's personal and, you've still got so much that's going on in your life. So it's not like, hey, I'm at the end of the road. I'm going to finally write that memoir. You're like, I'm writing it now and I'm still, I'm teaching. You're a professor of marketing and, doing all of that. So what was it that, led you to go, hey, I'm going to write this?
Well, it was a pandemic project. Like I think many books that are coming out now, people might have started them during the pandemic when they found some time. My mom had had a stroke, and she actually recovered from it. And
Fantastic.
I thought, I wish, but before she recovered, I was thinking, I wish she had written a book about all her fun memories. And I had two really cool grandmothers, and I wish I had a book that they had written. And I
Mm,
thought, well, now I'm in this pandemic with a little time on my hands. Why don't I write a book? Hadley had just had my first grandchild, B, and I thought, maybe B would like to know about the times that I kind of went through. So I started writing a lot of family stories. And when I submitted it later to the publisher, they said, you know what? We love this. We love this Disney framework. This is so relatable. But we want the story to be more focused on you, on your transformation, not a lot of the family stories. So I had to get out the scissors and cut out what I would call a lot of the fun parts for the family. And if I wanted it to actually turn into a book, which had not been my plan, I really was originally writing it for my family only,
mm.
and it morphed from there.
But
And,
cutting out those stories, well, like we'll always have them, as the family, but I think it actually made it a lot more relatable. You can see
mhm.
yourself in the story. You can see yourself in whether there are those moments or those forks in the road, those sliding doors moments. And I know that regardless of how old the reader might be, there've been a bunch of folks who are even college age who've had a peek at those arcs. There's something there for people to grab onto. And I suspect if
Mhm.
we kept in a lot of those like super personal little stories or anecdotes, like we'd be cracking up with them or we'd love them. But the book would feel a little less able to connect. It's a little more closed off.
I think it's important because it's showing the pattern of decision making and choices, that you put, let's just go right to the very beginning of the book. You talk about driving in a blizzard, what was becoming a blizzard. And normally you would stay home, but you're the breadwinner of the family, the caretaker of the family, and you're going to go out and put yourself in danger, which ended up in danger. Oh, see, I'm not supposed to see. This is it. I never finish every book because until after an interview because I am such a spoiler. Do I have to rewind this now?
No, you can
But you
share
know what
any
I mean?
spoilers. I mean, I
Yeah,
think that
because
the title
yeah.
already is a spoiler,
Well, it is.
It
It
tells you
is.
the takeaway.
But this is like here's the mom going out battling something that you have to make a decision. It's apples and oranges, and at the same time, yet it's like you're going to get nailed on either choice. And the mom goes out and does something. And I think that's what motherhood is so hard because moms, no matter what, are always providing in some way. I mean, every mom's different. So there are some moms out there that are not that way, but um, it's that decision making of what do you do for this ultimate care and caretaker, and you're in a new role in that caretaking has changed a little bit, right? As a new
Right.
caretaker,
It's not
and so
easy. It's not easy
don't
to be a
drive with a glass
warrior
slipper.
princess.
Don't drive with a glass slipper. It doesn't work
It was like
ever.
driving on glass that day, I'll tell you.
Oh, I've done that. It's not, no. When I was reading that, I was like, oh my God. Yeah, I've just been through that. Thank you, Pacific Northwest and your ice storms. Yeah, that was fun. But no, and it's weird because we did the same decision. Oh, we've got to do this. And I think that's something about choices in life of do you do it or don't you? And I know both of you have traveled a lot for all kinds of reasons. Of course, there's vacation travel, but I think travel is travel. And vacation travel is almost hard for us because to us, it's always about learning. And I don't know of a vacation where we just sat on the beach. I don't know. I don't know how to do that actually. So Deb,
we never did either,
okay, we're aligned on this. So travel, how has that impacted? I want to actually go to you, Hadley, first, because as a daughter, all these changes happen in life and you go through them. Do you feel like not having the fairy tale life, right? Hasn't that actually helped you become stronger as an individual and as a mother by going through that it's like, okay, that lesson's learned, on to the next?
Well, sure, it's all about resilience, but one thing that I think was always very clear to me, even growing up and looking at my mom, who was always my hero for all that she was able to accomplish, seemingly without effort, but obviously with a great deal of effort going on behind the scenes, was that you can be what you want, you can carve your own path, but there are always going to be trade-offs. There is no fairy tale. You have to make some choices. You can be great at this or you can be great at that, but you cannot be great at everything. So where do you want to put that energy? And then some things you just kind of have to let go. Otherwise they'll drive you crazy.
Oh,
that was
boy.
always so important to me to sort of know, you have that power, but don't believe the fallacy of having it all.
Exactly. And don't believe the fallacy of wishful thinking. Deb, what do you think about that? Like wishing things would change. And if you just wake up, close your eyes and wake up tomorrow, that it'll miraculously change for you for
Oh,
the
I don't
better.
know. When I was just listening to Hadley, first of all, proud mom, whenever you hear your child, this is a very unique experience for me listening to her. But there was something that I had in the book, and it talks about a speech I gave one time to a group of a couple hundred women at a United Way luncheon, and they wanted tips from professional executive women. And so I titled it Pick Two, like the Panera Pick Two, right? And so in tying back to what Hadley just said, like you can't do it all. So my philosophy was always, there's 4 different areas of life you can kind of focus on. There's family, however you define that. Like it could just be your spouse or your children or the whole family unit, et cetera, your parents, whatever. So family, and then there's friends, and there's work or career, and then there's self. And so my tips to these women in this speech and the pick two was, if you really want to be great at something, you need to focus on 1 or 2. And you can have certainly a wonderfully balanced life, and that's an option too. And I think that's a great option. But they were asking, like, how can you become a vice president, at a Fortune 500 company? And that was kind of my advice. You can't do it all. So for me, I chose the career and the family, obviously. And I defined it as my kids. And I think it worked. I mean, all 3 of them turned out fantastic. I'm ever so proud. And they also have, tying back to your travel comment, they also have a very broad worldview. Like Hadley ended up getting her MBA at Cambridge in the UK. And I'm not sure
Awesome.
she interned at the British Museum one summer as a college student. And Tyler, my son, interned over in China. Allie did
Wow.
a internship in China. Just all these different things that I don't know that they would have done coming from Indiana, where they were born, if they hadn't traveled and moved around and seen me do all these things.
Yeah. I think travel, I mean, because you have to put yourself in foreign, uncomfortable positions. Every time you travel, you don't know what's around the next corner. I mean, even just driving down a country road that you've never been on, you don't know where you're going to be next. No matter what GPS or a travel guidebook, it's that you don't know what's going to happen. And to me, it's thrilling and it's a challenge. But when you go through things and you connect with cultures, you start to realize, oh, I can do more. And I think travel, because life does move us around compared to when you think about, Deb, your mom, in the Beaver Cleaver lifestyle, no wonder they were all drinking martinis, man, at 4 o'clock. I'd be doing that too. I mean, I look at the life of, Betty Ford and her goals as a dancer and what happened with her and how she ended up, a little bit on the addicted side, right? Of medication her doctor gave her and alcohol. And it was that era of, you get to be the back seat no matter what your dreams are. And she tried so hard in so many different ways. And, I think
yes, she did. I mean, my mom, of course, never.
I'm not calling your mom Betty Ford at all.
No,
I
feel for the record, I should say
Yeah.
for the record that my mom never had alcohol pass her lips. She was the true June Cleaver. But I think all of us admire the Betty Fords. And I think I'm actually really proud. If you know who Brenda Chapman is, she was an Academy Award winning animator and writer and director of Disney's the Disney princess movie Brave. And Brenda Chapman actually read my book and wrote a wonderful review about it. And she said it was inspiring and other things like that. But she also tied it back to motherhood. And I just love that. And she created that character, Merida, which was very revolutionary for Disney to have such an independent character and no prince. It was the first time there was no prince in there. And that's how Brenda wanted to tell the story. And it was really based upon her own daughter. And I just think it's a lovely message. So if you get a chance to go back and watch one Disney princess movie, I recommend Brave.
Okay.
It's funny you talk about your mom, and we called her Gramby. She's Gramby to me. But when I knew her, she was all about the travel. So for a long time there, women couldn't unless they were, traveling alongside their husbands for some sort of business meeting, et cetera, or conference. But by the time I came along, Granby had been widowed, and she embraced that in terms of this newfound freedom and control. And she was always going somewhere. So not only did we see mom out there traveling the world with her job, but we also saw my grandmother do it just for the fun of it, to see all these places that she'd only heard about or read about before. And she was always coming back with these great stories. So it always seemed like there was, a big world out there if you have the courage to say yes.
That's amazing when you bring that into perspective, because we're looking at different generations, right? And women throughout the generations, I think there's one big thing that we all connect on, and that's caring and caring for each other, whether it's sisters, grandmother, granddaughter. There's this caring, nurturing part of us, right? I don't have any children, but it doesn't mean I don't care. I do a lot of caregiving in a lot of different ways, one of them with animals, but, it's different. But it generationally, there's a care system that comes from the monarchs, basically, and it runs down through these generations. And then that way we have a line of communication that can still flow during changing times, which keep changing. Women now are allowed to travel solo, and there were some women in history that have done that, and they were frowned upon and given a hard time about it. A lot of firsts of women getting on a ship by themselves. Oh, you don't have a husband, that kind of thing. If you had a child out of wedlock, all that kind of stuff was a big taboo. But now, I mean, we do so much on travel on our podcasts and magazines, and majority of the women traveling are doing it on their own. And that is a huge, huge percentage today of women, solo women travelers. And travel companies have catered to it. They've changed it, there's family vacations, multi-generational vacations, but now they're realizing that solo women will go out on their own, whether they're divorced, maybe they just didn't have a husband, maybe they're married to a woman, but they are going out in droves. It is probably one of the biggest tourism markets we have now is women. And
Oh, I just love hearing that.
Families. Yeah, it's huge.
And that's really, one of the big takeaways from the book is about giving women permission to write their own story, that you don't have to follow the society's script and you can be your own hero. And everyone listening needs to know this can be you. I'm a testament to that. I've lived it. It sounds like you have too, Lisa.
Mm-hmm.
And you can write your own happy ending. You can take that trip to Italy and practice your Italian over there, go to Peru or take up line dancing and, whatever you want to do, however you define happiness is breaking that glass slipper and finding the shoe that fits your life.
Yeah, I say take
it's
the
never
slipper
too
and
late.
throw it at the ceiling. Throw it at the ceiling and crack that puppy open.
It's never too late either, right? What's the old adage of it ends with a marriage? It doesn't anymore. That's just one chapter of your life. There's so many more chapters left. So no matter when your definition of happiness may change along the way too, and that's okay.
I'm wishing
and knowing that.
I'm wishing the next Disney princess movie, and I know they've done a follow-up with Ariel. She's the only mother only Disney princess that's ever been depicted as a mother, and it was in a sequel. But I'd really like to see, a single mom or a mom as a princess. Like let's show, instead of the happily ever after beginning when they marry the prince like it used to be, or now when they, save the day. Let's take it further.
They need to do Queen Boudica. Boudica,
okay.
Everybody has a Boudica. Yeah, everyone's got a different way of saying it. And excuse my language, but she is badass. Like, you don't mess with her. I mean, she went up against the Romans. They killed her husband, her two girls. And, they were saying that she fought and she had, there was a power of the sword. There was a power of also, when you think back in those days of spirituality was like at Merlin times, where, she could hear her kids tell her how to fight. And she fought because of the death of her kids and her husband alongside men that she used, her husband used to fight to go against the Romans. And I'd like to see that happen because it was bad back then. When they killed someone, they'd put them on their head on a as a trophy
on a pike.
And march it around. So that stuff is brutal. And I'm not talking about brutality and that kind of thing, but we should look at, we always look like, we're the victims in a way. And there is a mentality that comes that I also think we as women need to guard against. Something bad happens and it's Cry Me a River. Yes, we get to cry, we get to get mad, but we also need to deal with stuff. And we have that strength in us. And I think that's a very big part of your book is to get on with it and not, we can't be.
Don't sit on the sidelines. Yeah.
Don't be a baby. I'm not trying to be rude, but you know what I mean? Like, come on, we got stuff inside of us. And sometimes you just got to stand up. And maybe that's the first thing you do is stand up physically.
I think today's girls don't wait for rescue. And I think we're learning that our crowns, they come in different and really much better forms, like degrees or becoming a grandmother or of a puppy or, whatever design. I recently designed a home that I live in. I live in an enchanted forest. And so things like that can be interpreted as a crown these days. And I know our challenges remain, but I think now we're feeling that we have the power to shape our stories, to have the lives that we want. And I think that's kind of the point. It isn't to find, the journey isn't about finding a prince. It's about finding yourself. And that is like the best happy ending of all.
I have friends that got divorced, raised kids on their own. And what's interesting is they turn their houses into these, like you said, you've got your enchanted forest. There's
Yes.
just two right off the bat right now that I just like recently visited that turned their house into art, like complete vibrant colors. There's like, it's like an art house kind of thing. Both of these women that just went to my head, like they were like, you can't tell me not to paint this color. So I'm doing it loud and proud. And that's that. And quite frankly, it's fun to be in. It's really fun. You need those colors in your life. And I think they went from being in a very dark place to going, I'm going to shine with all these colors and be vibrant as who I am now. I've done my hard work. I've been in the dark. I am now seeing rainbow colors everywhere. And there actually now there's three, four. Now that I think about it, it's actually kind of an interesting thing how all these women are doing their homes in ways that are not what your HOA would like at all.
Well, I have a beautiful piece that actually my architect helped me paint. It's maybe 12 feet by 12 feet on the wall, and it's kind of the story of my life. It's that's a whole nother story, but it's a canvas that has different blocks, and each block means something to me, and they kind of build on each other, and it's really kind of fun to look at. And then the home is floor to ceiling windows on three sides, a big part of it. So it's like living in the forest. It's the
Mm,
architect named it the Cascade Treehouse, and you feel like you're living in
nice.
these 100-foot tall trees, and it's
Nice.
green all year round and lots of light. So it's not your typical Seattle home. My youngest daughter says, think Twilight, like the movie. And in fact, she's coming in a week or two to visit. She's based in Miami. And she's going to do a TikTok of me in the house, giving a little tour along with the architect. So they're trying to get me into TikTok between the publicist and my daughter. So that'll be kind of fun. You'll get to see a glimpse of the house.
Cool. We love that. I mean, it is about we go back to that word embrace, right? I wanted to ask Hadley as a mom, now reading the memoir, going back through your memories too, right? Of your childhood and everything. As a mom, has anything changed in your dialogue with your children now that you've read the memoir and kind of gone through it all? It's like looking at your life, right? In a way, your life, your mom's life. Has anything changed in your dialogue with your kids?
That's a good question. I mean, my kids are young enough, and as my mom mentioned, she started on this journey really right after my oldest was born. So I guess in a way, the book has been with me throughout my own
Oh, okay.
parenthood journey.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of hard to say like what I might have done differently, just because it's always been there. But I am conscious of the need to sort of meet your kid where they are or who they are. Every kid's different, just like every person is
Mm,
different. And whether you're talking, people or puppies, right? It's not one size fits all. So trying to adapt, my way of framing things or my approach based on, their personalities or, how they operate or what's important to them. And certainly you see that come through in the book and how, based on myself or my siblings, how we are, how we operate, how mom might have pivoted. Certainly at work, I think being a parent makes you a better manager in a lot of ways because you're able to, help frame things for others, or you have that additional empathy, or how you can help others succeed, how to
mm.
get out of your own way a little bit, and unlock new things for others or for the business. So I think there's a lot in there about, just how you approach things, how you frame things, and again, just making sure your kids know how much you value them. They know you're on their side, and that
That's important.
you support them in terms of who they are, and who they are is great, and they're not going to be like anybody else. So how can you help them like maximize their version of them?
Mm. Because, we think about expectations, right? And when I think about earlier generations, it was, you need to be a doctor, or, when I look at my mom's life, she was a wildlife artist and a writer. And I look at her career as an artist was incredible. I mean, I can't just, it's amazing what has transpired through her life as a writer, as, you know, all these things, owning a magazine in South Africa. She was the last independent one before everything changed. And she wasn't letting anybody take that magazine. Yeah, she was like, this is mine and it will die with me, you know, and then we came over here and, you know, next thing you know, we're doing this again. But, the expectations, you know, her family was like, she got a scholarship to go to college and they wouldn't let her because it was art and it wasn't nursing or teaching. And that was
Right.
all she was allowed to do. So the expectations were all already like, here's your limitation. They have this expectation, which is equivalent to a limitation. No teachers or nurses are limited. By the way, we really love and respect you all. You're vital, absolutely vital, and we value everything. But for someone who wants to be an artist, that was like, that's not who I am. So what you're saying, Hadley, is so crucial. And I wanted to go to Deb about that expectations, because that's hard, right? You had expectations in marriage, right? That changed real quick. And, well, not real quick, but you know what I mean? It's, that changes expectations that everybody has. No matter how you try to live up to those expectations, life will always give you a different plan. So how do you manage that as a mom too, in throughout motherhood? Obviously, you're still a mom, right? You never, you know, that hat is always there. But expectations, did you ever think about that as a parent?
Well, I think actually in writing the book, it helps you go back and reevaluate, like, why did he make that decision? Or that was a really good one, or, you know, you question different things. But I think also when I was writing the book, I realized that society's expectations or limitations for women was really the antagonistic force in the book. It wasn't, for example, my second husband. It
Mm-hmm.
was what society was telling me what I thought I was supposed to live my mom's fairy tale, and I had to learn that I held up the mirror. I'm not living her fairy tale. And so I gave myself permission to rewrite my own happily ever
Mm-hmm.
after. And that's what I want to do. You know, that's really why I went ahead and published the book. Like I said, I
Mm-hmm.
started doing it for the family. And when it turned into be the focus on my transformation, like other women, especially of my generation, or really for any generation, like we continue to transform. And I wanted women to have permission to know that, you know, you can change, you can write your own path. And, you know, I've done it. And I give a few tips on the bonus content on my website, like how you can get started, because a lot of women feel stuck. And I've done a lot of research about happiness. That's the academic side of me. And I don't know, you know, for the listeners, like 50% of your happiness is genetically determined. And a lot of people think that their circumstances is the biggest thing. No, that's only 10%. But
Mm-hmm.
really, the remaining 40% is totally up to your self-control. And so you really need to choose that you want to be happy and go after it and figure out what it is that makes you happy. So
I
I want
love
people to
that.
feel responsible for their own happiness. Don't wait for Prince Charming, you know, to come and deliver that to you. He's probably not coming. Or if he does, that's a big burden to put on him. You know, you should take care of your own happiness and try to partner with a Prince
Mm-hmm.
Charming or whomever you want to partner with.
Oh, I just want, you know, a big alligator to hang out with. I don't know. It's interesting. You know, it's so, we all make these life choices, you know, and you can change them at any time. What you think at one point in your life, you go, oh, by this age, I want to be this. Like, I think sometimes we overmap it too. We overplan it
Yes.
and don't let ourselves go back and say, you know, I thought at that point because I was so into this that I would want, you know, this. Go back and rework it. You can change it anytime you want. No, it's the same thing as, you know, no is a one, you know, the word no is a full sentence. It's the same thing as no, you can change anything without having a reason, just because you want to. We're
It's never
allowed
too
to.
late. I got my
Yeah.
doctorate in and started my second career after being a corporate executive, vice president. I retired early, got a doctorate, and now I teach at the college level
Hmm.
for a couple of universities. And I'm having a ball with it. It's just part-time. It's mostly for fun. And but I'm really proud. I'm
Mm.
showing my kids and my grandkids, it's never too late. You can just keep doing different things. And I know I'm sitting here in my office talking to you guys, and as I look on the walls, I remember when my granddaughter, when she pops in here and she looks up there and she sees her Grammy, me, riding a camel in a picture, or here she is on an elephant, or she's, at the Taj
Hmm.
Mahal or at the Great Wall. And, so she knows that her grandmother is out there and does all these things. And I think that opens her eyes that she can do them too someday.
Mm. Now, let's talk about travel because it really does affect us, right, in positive ways. And even if we go through something absolutely harrowing, it really becomes a good story later, no matter what, right? It's like, well, this happened when we were here, but like we're here, we're still here. Um, it's like Nancy and I just got growled at by a big alligator because we stumbled upon her and her babies. We didn't see
Nest.
her. She was, yes. And we got growled at and it was fantastic. And other than we left, we were scared. She did scare the heck out of us, but it was this like, don't go mess with her just out of let her be. She
She's
didn't
a
need a
mother.
stressful day. Yeah,
She's
don't,
protecting.
well, there was a whole bunch of other gators and they were all carrying on. It was scary. It was very cool. But anyway, it was scary, but it was cool. And then you go like, be respectful. Don't be one of those idiot tourists, you know what I mean? That hang out and put your baby next to one and take a selfie. But, I wanted to go to each of you through travel. Has there been somewhere on your bucket list that you haven't been yet? Whether you do it for work or pleasure or however you get there. Let's start with you, Hadley. Is there any place that you want to go?
Oh man,
Or is
so
that a
many
list?
places,
Oh,
so
okay, I
many
knew it.
places that I would love to go. But I think they're different kinds of trips. But right now, the things on the top of my list are places that I've loved going, and I want to show with my kids, or see it through their eyes. So there are a bunch of places in Europe that I went to for the first time with my mom, or where I met my now husband, where I'd love to share that with them, or some of the experiences that we had, like going to New York for the first time, riding the subways, getting to do all these things that adults may take for granted. There's something
Mm,
really neat about seeing it for the first time through someone else's eyes, or getting the opportunity to, I don't know, it's almost like living through it again. So
mm.
there are a number of special places like that where we just want to like let's have that experience, let's share that, and let's make that memory.
And when you travel too, in growing up and it's something different, like not as a vacation, do
Yeah.
you feel like you learned things from that, whether it's sports or, all that kind of travel? Because I think all of that adds to, you're still like if you have to compete in sports in a different place, like you don't have the home, the home turf advantage, right?
Oh, sure.
So,
No, we were always going somewhere. So whether that's through my sports, and it was sort of like that's my job we're traveling for, and how are you on? How do you balance your other responsibilities and time management? How do you get your head on straight, or how do you get acclimated in a hurry? Or going for later my sister. Um, that was also fascinating to kind of see, ooh, from this angle, what is it like, et cetera. Or when we'd get to go along occasionally for my mom's job, and what is that like? But anytime we went somewhere new, it was exciting to, learn more about that place. You always kind of wonder, what is it like to live here? And one of the cool things about a lot of the junior tennis circuit was that you'd go to these like more out of the way towns, and
mhm.
it wasn't always just the big city, and so you'd get a little bit more of like a slice of life. Or I'll date myself a little bit here, but like it's before GPS, where you'd have to
Mm-hmm.
get out that Rand McNally, or you'd get like a hand-drawn map from
Hey,
the
I
tennis
still have one in
club.
the car. I have the handbook
Right. Oh,
now.
I do
I
too.
do.
Always
It's
under
torn
the
up.
driver's seat.
It's torn up
But
to shreds, but I have it.
oh yeah.
Just
No,
in case.
that's
Mm-hmm.
right. They're also, fascinating. But it's you just get to know things in a different way. Or what is this place like? And we have so many fond memories of, random places because of that. And we'd get to do it all sort of as a team. My brother is the
Yeah.
great navigator, for example. Like that kid could tell you like any small road from Indianapolis to Michigan and out to the end of
Yeah.
Pennsylvania and beyond.
And by the way, you will get pulled over in Indianapolis. No, Indiana. Listen, your state. Can I just tell you? Yeah, I got pulled over in a cornfield.
Oh
Like
my goodness.
literally. Yeah. Then they go 45, 50, 45, 50, and then you get nailed. And he's sitting there right outside a barn. I'm not kidding. And nailed me. Yep. But he was
Got to make
nice.
that quota.
But I got off.
They're negotiable.
Yes, it's like, I'm so sorry. I'm from Arizona. I don't
Well,
know how it works out here in the cornfields, you know.
It's
But
so
it was,
flat. It's
I know.
different.
Oh my gosh, it's like driving through Kansas. I mean, there's times, and I love the Midwest. I really do. It's a whole different world, and it's beautiful and dramatic. If in winter, it's a whole other world. Let me tell you. I think you all know that. But yeah, I think there's something about that. And Deb, for you, I mean, you've traveled for work and everything. Isn't it kind of like that? Okay, this is new, but there's an excitement. Yet at the same time, it's like, all right, do they have what's the corner grocery store like for like when you're setting up a new house, right? I know you've been through that. Nancy and I've done that in different countries. Like next thing when we came here to this country, when came home, I hadn't been here since I was a year and a half. We went to a grocery store and we were so overwhelmed. We had a cart full of things and we ended up just walking out because we didn't know how to grocery shop when we got here. Is that crazy or what? Just
oh
total,
gosh.
because it's overwhelming out of, Africa, butter's butter, bread is bread, and, you know,
Right. Right. So
and
many choices. It's like cable
I,
TV, too many choices.
oh, we
Well,
didn't have, yeah, you guys had TV in the daytime, and I'm like, and talk shows, and I was horrified because we didn't see anything like that in South Africa. Like families on shows arguing, that was a no-no. Mm-mm, that would
well,
never
I
happen.
just to piggyback off of what you guys were talking about, favorite travel or memories or whatever. I remember when the kids were 8 years old, I took them to New York and we called it the Home Alone tour because that New York version had just come out. And so we went to all the stops like, Buggy Ride in Central Park, FAO Schwartz, Plaza Hotel, and, things like that. And then when they were 10, we took them to Europe and they got to do their own itinerary. So my, Hadley, the oldest, she picked to focus on just a couple countries like France. She wanted to go to Monet's Garden, and
Oh
UK. She
yeah,
wanted to
the
visit
Bernie. Mm.
Wimbledon and some castles and things like that. And my son, Tyler, he wanted to pack in as many countries as possible into the 10 days. So I think with our Eurail passes, we made stops in like 8 countries, so that was it's just fun to let them each take their own way. And then by the time Allie came along, she was already at a very young age traveling all over the world. So she didn't have that classic trip. And now I'm focused, like I mentioned earlier, on the national parks. I feel like I've done a lot of the international and I want to really check off all of those 63 parks. So that's the new goal.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Now, the other thing I wanted to bring up is you have two music with Spotify playlists on your site, which, I always ask people like, hey, do you have a playlist, because I always think about books and playlists. So if you go to forgetthefairytale.net, you can pre-order the book too, just saying. It has all the links on there and a music playlist. But are you going to do book clubs? Because I think
Yes.
you would
And
be fantastic with that.
I would love to do book clubs. And I think the playlist, now that you mention them, would be perfect. And there's two versions, there's Disney versions on the site now. But then if people buy the book, if you get the book, you get the bonus. And under the bonus, I have 3 other playlists and I had so much fun making them. There's one that's pop. songs. There's one for each chapter. There's like 19 chapters, so there's 19 songs. One for oldies. And then one of my students at Washington State, she did a Taylor Swift version because Taylor has a song for every occasion. And we it was a hoot going back and forth. Oh, well, for chapter 7, I would have had this song from Taylor. No, I would have had this one. And I'm even doing a country version. So I think those are things that are fun and interactive for book clubs, after you've read the book, that you could say like, no, this is what she should have had for chapter 17, so it's really kind of fun.
That's awesome. I think you'd be fantastic at book clubs, but now I'm going to suggest something that I've never suggested to any author, and we've done so many interviews. Okay, just talking about all the travel that all of you have done as a family and, and all individually, but when you take your book, right, and this would be so cool. And Hadley, I know you're a Google girl too. I know you'll get what I'm talking about. So forget the fairy tale and find your happiness map. Google map of the different places you're talking about in the book and from life and places that you recommend people go to. I'm just saying a Google map, and then you can say, as mentioned in chapter whatever, and if you have a photo to add to it, what do you think, Hadley?
So cool.
No,
I can see the
great.
visual.
And I'd love to see, other people share theirs too. Like that's how you learn about new experiences, new places is from other people sharing.
Ooh, book club map. Yeah. Check that out. Like the reader's map, your map, or you could have everybody, because you only get to have 100 entries per map. I don't know if that's going to change, but it would be so cool to have an interactive map on your site. It's very easy to do.
I love it. Maps.
Yeah, that would be super awesome. And yours would be global. You could have a global map. You could have an Indiana map. Just saying. And I'll submit my corn pulling over place in the map.
Yes.
We can zoom in and out here.
I know. I like this. Well, ladies, thank you so much for joining us on the show today. And everyone, again, the book is coming out. Again, it's called Forget the Fairy Tale and Find Your Happiness. It is out June 24th, 2025 through She Writes Press, but you can pre-order it now. It's such a great way to support authors. You can go listen to the music playlist. You can go and find out more. Just go to forgetthefairytale.net. Thank you both. Thank you, Hadley.
Thank you, Lisa. It was such a pleasure.
Thank you, Lisa. This was a ball, especially doing it with my daughter. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. That was great. And happy Mother's Day.
Yeah,
happy Mother's Day to all moms.
To you and Nancy.
Thank you for listening to Big Blend Radio. Keep up with our shows at bigblendradio.com.